Activate.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 52 of On the Back Ash, where we talk about things in the pageantry arts world. My name is Cedric. I'm joined, as usual, with Zach and Will. And you might notice a different face on the podcast today.
Show.
For sure. We got Mr.
It was already. You were scared.
You want me to do it? I got it.
You psyched yourself out. You psyched yourself out.
This is our friend Noah Gawarecki.
There we go.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I got you.
Yeah,
I got you.
Who is a former member of the Boston Crusaders, correct?
Yeah.
So, thought he'd bring him home, let him talk about his kind of perspective and his experiences marching drum corps, especially with that particular corps, with that particular season, which was one for the books, probably, questionably, arguably one of the best seasons in Boston Crusaders history.
Yeah.
I'd say, with a really fine show that they did there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk to him about that and maybe get some cool insight about his experience there, because I think that's the cool thing about drum corps is everybody has a different experience with it, especially not only with the particular corps that they march, but like the particular season that they march for that corps. Because sometimes you with a corps when they turn things around and figure things out, or win a championship, or or kind of fall after like a staff change or something like that. So everybody's experience is really different. So I'm looking forward to kind of hear about that. So I'm not going to waste any more time. So Noah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, like what are you doing, like what you're doing now, and maybe a little bit about your drum corps history and stuff.
Yeah.
Like
Currently, I'm a graduate student at UK. I'm starting my master's in trumpet performance at the University of Kentucky. I guess I should clarify that. I marched 5 years of drum corps, actually. I started marching when I was 15, and I took a year off, and then COVID forced me to take 2 years off. And then I marched the Boston Crusaders from the COVID year, 21 to 22. Actually started at Spirit of Atlanta, and then didn't end up having the most fun time there. So I went to Music City in 18 before I took my year off. So, yeah. A lot of experience with a lot of different corps, and each one of them had something different, which was really cool.
That's what's up.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because being from Kentucky, we always try to get our kids. We say you should do drum corps, you should do drum corps, or at least try to do it. And for us in our area, Music City is typically where kids would start. And because we always tell them, like, we know you want to watch the big dogs and Blue Coats and Blue Devils and all that good stuff, but like, get in the door. Like, how do you think your experience going to Spirit first kind of help you prepare to eventually march for one of the top tier world class corps?
Yeah. So when I was in high school, the guy that we had hired to do visual stuff, his name was Mikey. I'm not going to say his last name because, privacy and all that. But he was our visual caption head in high school. And after the season was over, he said, hey, I just got hired to be the visual caption head at Spirit of Atlanta for the next season, so you should come and audition for the corps. And that was for the 16 season, and I was only a sophomore in high school. And I talked to my parents, and we just said, nah, maybe you should wait a year. And then in the summer, I didn't march. And then he offered the same thing after my junior year of marching band. And my parents were like, okay, yeah, they had a satellite camp in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, and we signed up for that, and we went, and I ended up getting the call back. So that was my intro into drum corps, was through him, and I ended up making that corps, and it was a big step, even though Spirit was in decline as a corps for that point in time. It was still a great corps to go to, and they still had a lot of really good staff there. Visually and with the brass world. And it really helped me know what I was getting myself into, because I didn't know what drum corps was until a year ago when I started marching. So I got my contract, and they sit us down and they tell us what we're in for, the 12-hour days, the strenuous physical activities that we're going to be doing. And I said, yeah, okay. And the rush of getting the contract to march a drum corps was in my head. And like, I had heard all that, but it didn't really stay there. It kind of just went in and went out the other year. So as a 15-year-old, I probably didn't train as much as I should for the first season. And that's something you want to do, because I don't want to say I suffered, but I definitely had some pretty big injuries come up. But the med staff there took care of me, and they got me right every time, which is really important nowadays.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And that Mikey you speak of, me and Will know him
Yes, sir.
really, really well.
Oh, yeah?
We actually marched. Yeah, we marched Eclipse together.
Yeah.
Back in
Cool.
Yeah, back in 2003. So we good friend of ours, and knows what he's doing. Like,
yeah, he does.
He was a tenor player, you know, and then like this became one of the best visual people around this area for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know exactly who you were talking about.
Yeah, he was on my staff when I marched Madison. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
that's cool.
I've taught with him. Huh. Yeah, he was. Yep. Yep, all of them. Basically, almost all of them was. Yeah, I taught with him, wrote some music for him when he went back to Louisville to teach the drumline there. Helped him when he was at Greenwood in Kentucky. And so, yeah, good dude, man. Good dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude. For sure.
The pageantry arts world is smaller than, you know, sometimes we realize. You run across a lot of people, and like just to work with that type of high quality people, you know, at that point in time, we didn't know who we were working with or who we were marching with at that time, and to kind of see them doing the things that they're doing now is really, really cool, really amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he would be, Mikey would be super proud of everything that you accomplished in the pageantry arts and all that gets.
He was proud of me in the year that I marched Spirit of Atlanta. You know, that was my first year. Like I said, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So I had a lot of rough patches during that first year of drum corps, and he got me through a lot of that. I have a lot of love for that man. He taught me a lot of what I know and still teach to the kids that I teach today.
Yeah, good dude, good teacher, just all around human being. So you did Spirit for a little bit. Decided that wasn't a place for you. How was your experience with Music City? Because like I said, a lot of our kids around here locally, that's where they go. And because I mean, I'm sure you're proud just to be an alumni of that group. You're probably pretty proud to see how they came out this year. Yeah,
for sure. There again, a lot of things have happened since when I marched in 18 and from what they did nowadays. But 18, I wasn't actually going to march in the 18 season because I went to Spirit and re-audition just in the off chance it went better. And I also went and auditioned for the Bluecoats. Wasn't sure I wanted to march Spirit, so I resigned my contract for the 18 season with them shortly after I got it. Went up to the Bluecoats camp and got cut. Didn't have a great experience at the Bluecoats camp. Again, I think I was just a little young. So on the way home, I was telling my mom, I was like, I just don't think I want to do drum corps anymore. And so she said, oh, okay. And then I think like the next week I was at high school in one of my classes and she texted me. She's like, hey, have you thought about Music City at all? And I was like, I don't know. I don't think I want to do drum corps. And she said, well, I signed you up and you're going this week. So
you were doing drum corps that year.
And I went.
You didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Mom pulled rank on that.
I went there and I had a great time. I had an immediate connection with almost everybody that I talked to because they were closer to my age group. I mean, I think I was 17, maybe 16. No, yeah, I would have been 16. And I connected with all of them right off the bat. It was a great time. And I got the notice during that next week that I got a contract and I said, okay, I think I'd like it a lot better here than anywhere else right now. So I took the contract and I marched the season. So it was a great time. And with the brass caption head that was there, he really pushed me to get better. And it was just the right kind of environment for me to be pushed with people that I was close to and could relate to more than I could at Spirit. Because I didn't mention this earlier, but I was really young at Spirit, and in 17, they had a lot of age outs. It was a very mature horn line. And I was not a very mature person because I was 15 with a bunch of 21 and 21-year-olds. So Music City was the right place for me to go the next season, and I'm really happy I went there. And I've heard nothing but good experiences from all the friends that I have that still march there.
Yeah, we got a couple of friends that have and friends and former students that have marched at Music City, and nothing but good stuff to say about their experience there.
For sure.
Yeah. I want to roll back to your parents, man. So, like, are they like hyper band nerds too? Like, because you don't hear that very often.
I do up for
We're about to spend all this money. Yeah. Like,
so they, from an early age, like I got into band. Band was like the only thing I asked my parents to do. Like they had to tell me, hey, you're doing baseball. Hey, you're doing soccer. Hey, you're doing basketball as a kid. And I didn't like any of that. And then fifth grade comes around and they're asking kids, who wants to do band? And I was like, that's me. I want to do that. And so I think my parents were really supportive of that because it was the only thing I ever showed a lot of interest in. And so when I really started to be into band through middle school, I just wanted to do it to get out of study hall. And when I got to marching band, that's when it really started to become a passion for me, which is why I did so much drum corps. And they didn't know how expensive it was going to be when I first started doing it. But it wasn't as expensive. Even in the 5 years that I marched, tuition went from $3,300 to $2,000 more in the course of 4 or 5 years. And they saw that $3,300 price tag and they saw what I would get out of it. And I think they saw that it was worth it. The travel opportunities, the experience I would get, all of that. And we definitely did a lot of fundraising to make that first season happen, but it was worth it. And you're right. We don't see a lot of parents supporting that for me. And even in my friends here at the University of Kentucky, they're like, oh, your parents support you. They want you to spend this money going to grad school to get a degree in music. And they're like, yeah, my parents, and I'm super blessed to have parents that are supportive of me doing all this with my music career.
That's nice.
That is, that's one thing, as an educator, the parents that support their kids in whatever they do, it makes things for the kid and the instructors so much easier because whether it's band or just any type of sports, when you're paying that money, like you said, your parents saw the investment. They not only knew that you weren't just paying for this activity, but you were paying for an experience. I mean, just think about how many times we've paid $3,000 or $4,000 to go on a vacation. For a family vacation, and you take your whole family, and because you want your kids to have that experience. Well, it's the same thing. It's just you're just working a little bit more, and you're doing some stuff. But kudos to your parents for seeing that as an investment in you, because it is. Those kids get a lot out of doing drum corps, and even on the lesser level, marching band.
Yeah.
So, yes, shout out to your parents. Give them a high five next time.
Listen,
I gotcha.
So COVID hits and you had to take that year off. So what made you want to try Boston?
That's a good question. The entire 19th season, I was trying to think about where I was going to audition for, where I could actually go with the amount of money I had, if I could send in videotapes or anything. And really, the reason I went to Boston was because it was the first audition camp I went to, honestly. They were one of the first course to have auditions. And they had a satellite camp in Indianapolis, and my family just happened to have a shopping trip up near that area. So we made it a trip, and I don't want to say this, but it felt like the easiest audition I'd ever had in my life. I walked in there, the brass caption head Gino showed up, I think 20 minutes late, and he explained how the audition was going to work. You play this for me, play your etude, and then we'll talk, and then I'll send you off to the Viz caption head. And he asked who wanted to go first, and I put my hand up. I was like, I want to get it over with. And I played for him. He said, let's see if you march as well as you play. And I guess I did. I got my contract in 20 minutes. I walked in the door, had a contract in an hour. And I was a little upset, to be honest, because when I did the Spirit Edition day, it was 3 days of if you want a contract, you got to work for it. You got to be the best there is here at this edition camp out of 150 people. And I showed up to a satellite camp for the Boston Crusaders, and had a contract in an hour and left the building in an hour. And I was like, man, if I would have known it would have been that easy, I just would have went there instead of Spirit.
I've said for years that I've said for years that people really don't understand the difference between group to group. And while processes are similar, they ain't the same.
Yeah, for sure.
So, because that was while they were on the come up too. Like they were trying to, they were making that push towards, a top 3 spot and things of that nature. So, like, I'm sure they had lots of people trying to get in that group, and for you just to come in there and play, and like he knew within like 5-6 notes, like go ahead, bro.
It was weird because I got a contract, and there were a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, there were probably a handful of us who got our contract at a satellite camp early in the season. And then in the January camp, we all had to re-audition, I think. Like we were still auditioning just to make sure that we didn't get our contract in November and then we just checked out. Like they wanted to make sure that we were as good as they thought we were. And I luckily kept my contract all the way through the February camp. And I got really lucky getting that contract as early as I did, I think. I think I just happened to be at the right place at the right time, say the right words, do the right things. And I was competitive, and that's what kept me in the core for as long as it did during that 20 season.
Yeah. So you got to march the Zoom show.
Yes, got to march the Zoom show.
How was putting that together? Because we went to what was it called? A celebration that year?
Yeah, celebration or whatever.
So we went to the celebration that year, and I watched that show, and I said, if this was a competitive year, they could have won with this.
Yeah.
Like, how was it? Like, how was the rehearsal atmosphere? Like, did you feel any different?
From the year I did in 22 to the year I did in 21, there was very little difference. I think we got lucky in 21 because, again, we had the same amount of spring training move-ins as we would a normal year. Maybe it was a week shorter. We did 4 weeks of spring training in the COVID season during 21, and then we did a 2-week tour. And I mean, we did the same things we would during a regular season. We put the entire show together. We learned all the beats. We had the show mostly produced by the time we left for the tour. And that was actually ahead of what we do in a regular season, because typically in a regular season, the full show isn't produced until like finals week during Allentown. And needless to say, it was interesting. Granted, Zoom was, I don't want to say an underproduced show, but it was definitely a show that less resources were sunk into, other than I think we spent like $2.1 million on those video boards. Granted,
What?
I could be totally wrong, but we spent a good chunk of change on those video boards, and we didn't buy them; we just rented them. And to rent them, in total, I think it cost about $2 million. And I could be totally wrong; maybe it's like $200,000. But we spent a good chunk of change on those video boards.
Listen, I almost turned the whole podcast off because I was like, "Ain't no way, bro." Ain't no way. How y'all gonna pay for every single drum corps?
Dude.
Because I'm like, if they spent 2.1 mil, they would still need to be using
at least
for the next 10 years.
Yeah,
like we're gonna
create. They reused that fire prop.
Listen, we creating a saga. Like this is season 1 of this show, and you got 10 more left.
Each year, the screens just move further across the field to the other end zone.
Further across the field.
Ain't no way.
No, they reused that fire prop for 7 years after they did
Because Ayala and Indoor,
but y'all not gonna reuse these screens. Come on now.
Ayala and Indoor used them TVs for like 4 years back to back. I said, yeah.
Turned them every which
all
way they
kinds
could.
of which way.
Yeah.
Stacked them.
Yeah.
I said, yeah.
And then pedal.
Ain't no
Sheesh.
pedal, yeah.
Pedal both.
I said, shh. Pedal took her to marching band too. I said,
Wow.
But no, that
I'm telling you,
the Zoom show. I felt like I was like, this.
I was mad.
This could have done well.
I was mad it wasn't competitive.
Yeah.
And if it was competitive, I think they would have sunk a little bit more into it. Like you said, but I was just like, okay, they're coming out trying to prove a point here, like because the way they used the screens was really smart. The book didn't hold back any. Like I was just like this is.
Yeah, they didn't just like some of the other groups who like recycled a show or kind of backed off on the gas a little bit. Like I feel like Boston just kept their head down and kept going because they knew that they were building something.
Yeah. Every corps took a different approach. Cadets went back to, they did some throwback show. Bluecoats did their Lucy show, which was just a copy of their Beatles show from 19. And Boston actually, it was a new show, but it wasn't the show we were going to do for 20. But we did actually end up keeping the ballad. But the ballad from 20 was longer. So we cut it in about half, I think. And it was still a great ballad, I think. And that was the only part of the 21 show that I think we kept from the 20 season, to my knowledge. And it worked in our favor. Like you said, we didn't pull any punches. We did the same thing that we would have done for a regular season. And I do agree, and maybe I'm a little biased because I marched the show, but out of the corps that actually went to that celebration weekend, I do think Boston had some of the best stuff going on.
I thought,
in my opinion,
I'm not saying that just because you're here. I really thought I was like that would have won if we were competing against whatever. That would have won.
Yeah,
just the way it was put together, just well thought out, and that was just a cool thing to see. We talked about that while we were up there and on the way back. It's like I wonder if we felt so good about this season because there weren't any numbers around it. Like I love competition and I'm competitive too.
Yeah.
Like I think corps really just had a chance to be like, you know what, let's do what we do. Let's be entertaining. Let's still put on a show. Give all these kids a great high quality experience. Crown went out with 2 weeks band camp to put on a, probably
with 200 people.
I was impressed by what they did.
How the hell the guard will be this clean
in the guard by itself?
I said, what is Crown doing?
I will say, it was a 6-week season, and I will say that even though it was only 6 weeks, it was like one of the most fun seasons I'd ever had because there was no stress of the numbers aspect of it. You just went out on that field and you played music with your best friends for 2 weeks, and it was great. Do I wish the season was a little longer? Yeah, but not 3 months long. It was the right amount of time and the right amount of length for it to really be enjoyable. And in a typical 3-month tour, by the time you get to finals week, you're like, oh, it's still fun, but man, I'm getting tired of some of these people.
Let them know
what they do.
It's real.
Yeah,
it's real talk.
We do. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Was the hang probably not a good word. Was the finals experience, the celebration experience for those days in Indy different than the next year when you were actually competing? How was that vibe?
Oh, it was totally different. The 20 during the celebration weekend, there was none of the stuff that we got from the 22 season. Like the age out ceremony was completely different. Age outs weren't all on the field together. They had to do it in chunks because of COVID. So like if you were in Music City, like a lot of the people that are in Texas schools, they march a lower corps for their rookout sometimes, and they have friends that march like a top 12 corps. So those kinds of people that had friends in these top upper level corps never got an opportunity to hang out with their age out friends from a different corps because of those chunks of time. I think that year there also wasn't an alumni corps that performed. There was a lot of things that were different. Obviously, there was no retreat. The retreat was a different vibe entirely. That was my only retreat I'd ever been to as a performing member, and it was completely different. You're lining up in one of the back rooms where the guard warms up, and you're enjoying your final run through. And when it gets to that finals day of competition, you know there's not going to be any upsets. It's just how drum corps is. There's not typically any upsets that happen, so you know where you are. And so you just get to enjoy the fact that you just had a great season of drum corps. You finished with your best run of the season, if you're lucky. And it was just great. And then you get to hear all the scores announced. You walk out, people are applauding you. It was totally different experiences. And I think that performing the show in 20 was more fun, but the competitive aspect of the 22 season was fun in its own way, you know?
Yeah. When we talk about this, like that celebration year, it was something that everybody who was there performing and to see made the most of it, because we knew that we'd almost lost that activity and it could have been gone forever. And sure. I think everybody just wanted to soak it up and applaud and be excited for what we were seeing, because even if it was something little, because we almost lost it, you know. And you just, sure. You know, I feel like there's a lot of standing O's at finals anyways, but the celebration year, I feel like everything was just a standing O, because everybody was just wanting to communicate to the performers that, you know, we see you, we know that you've been through a lot, and it was completely different for you all. I'm not sure the protocols and the testing and the bubble atmosphere and all that stuff, it made it even its own different version of being difficult.
Yeah, for sure.
Just go ahead.
No, I was going to say anything.
I was just going to. I think a lot of the crowd was really shocked by the quality of drum corps that we saw during that season too. Like, it was just like, you know, and everybody did it really, really smart for the most part.
100%.
Like Phantom bringing back Harmonic Journey, like that was for everybody, because everybody that was a 2000s fan knows what that show is, but also the new people got to see like what the hype was behind that show. Cadets doing their throwback show was good. Cavies with their, you know, the rock concert at the Rose. I really liked that one. I was like, I ain't liked the Cavie show in a long time. And that one, I was like, okay. I
and then Scouts.
Scouts.
That was the crown jewel of the night, I think, because that was when they debuted the co-ed corps too, I think. And it was just like, nobody kind of really knew what was going to come out of that. And then they had an awesome show. And it was like, all right, this is the Scouts that we want to see more of. And it was good little it was a good statement for them.
Yeah, so people took some risks too. I believe, was it Spirit that did the Living Tree or the
Living Tree? Yeah.
You know, and that's something that you typically don't see from them. But, you know, they gave it a shot. Blue Stars
in the Heights
with the car.
They had like
in the Heights
200 people out there too. They had a huge corps that year.
Yeah.
So
massive corps.
I mean, that was just a really, really cool year to see folks doing some things and taking some risk. You know, just pretty cool. So let's talk about your age out season for a little bit. Did you know going into it that it was going to be that special of a season for you guys?
Uh-oh. Got some audio.
Yeah, his mic went out again.
One.
Yeah.
River.
Oh my gosh. So, I know that's randomly to say Riverside in the middle of a conversation, but
Listen, nothing makes sense anymore.
No, it doesn't. So going into your age out season, did you have a feeling that Boston was going to have like this one of a kind season going into it?
For me, there was no strong feeling that it would be a special season. I felt like we would have a strong season because we had so many returning veteran members who marched from 21 and even some from 20 before COVID. There was no special feeling for me that it would be a special season. But there were people in the Corps that definitely felt that this show was going to be special. Like mainly the head drum major. He saw the whole thing unfold. He had a different perspective. I was just a performer on the field. You know, he saw the entire thing unfold and the drill and the music. And he really felt that it was going to be something special from almost day one of spring training, which I thought was really cool. And it took me till about the end of spring training for it to really hit that this was going to be something special.
Yeah. Cause that was going to be my follow up. Was like when did it kind of dawn for you? Because sometimes the designers see the whole big picture, and you guys are just kind of pawns or whatever in the whole grand scheme of things. And then sometimes it takes for that first show to happen. You're like, man, we really got something here.
Yeah. Yeah. If I were to try and define it to one moment specifically, it would probably be the Detroit show. Just because there were so many emotions. I'd never been to that show before. And it was, even though I had been with the Boston Crusaders since 2022 was my first competitive season with them. And going into that first show, onto Ford Field, the entire day was so special because we got to rehearse on Ford Field, which was such a special thing for me personally. And it was also the first time I'd ever had a solo in drum corps. And so when I got to that point in the show where we did this solo and there were so many emotions and it was really raw. I became kind of a meme, I guess, in the drum corps internet sphere because of the clip that Drum Corps International posted of the solo and the emotion I had. It was very clear all over my face that there were a lot of things going on. So that was the moment for me in the season where I was like, this is going to be special.
Yeah. So for those, DCI fanatics out there, if you saw a picture of Boston, that's this guy we're talking to right now.
That was me probably.
Yeah. So was that an audition process? Like, were you expecting that coming into the season or?
I was student teaching during the off season in 22, trying to finish up my bachelor's in music education. But sometime on my lunch break while I was teaching some elementary school students, I got a call from the trumpet tech who said that there's going to be a solo and it's going to be hard and it's going to be loud and high, and that they were really looking at 3 people to do that solo. And it was me, the horn sergeant, and one other guy who also played lead trumpet. And I don't know if I should say it, but the trumpet tech did say that the brass caption head was expecting me to be the person to play that solo, but I didn't take that to heart because anything could happen. And I actually missed the camp where we were supposed to audition for that because I had some school obligations that had to be taken care of, and school always comes first. So I missed the audition for it. But we re-auditioned for it during the second week of spring training. And what he did was he took us into a dorm room on the university, and we had a couple of solos throughout the show. There was the small ensemble at the beginning. There were some things in the early season that actually ended up getting cut. There was the solo that I ended up getting, and then the solo that was right after it. And he just auditioned all of those right away. And we did that twice. The first time, it was kind of a weak showing from all 3 of us that actually ended up auditioning for that solo. And then the second time around, I had a much stronger audition, a much stronger sound, and so I ended up getting that solo. So it was a very long process, but it was worth it in the end. I think we did things the right way in the end.
So it took you longer to get that solo than it did for you to get in Boston the first time.
How about that?
That's true.
Oh man.
You just paid it for a little bit back. That's okay though. So, so you guys end up finishing second, tied for second. What was the core thought process behind that? Like, was it like, oh, we should have won, or we should have just flat out been second, or what?
It was different from all the members in the core. Me personally, I wanted to beat the Bluecoats just because I'm competitive. And I remember when they announced that we had a tie for second place, I knew it was us and the Bluecoats, the Boston Crusaders and Bluecoats. And it took me about 15 minutes on the field during retreat to like really process it and be like, okay, I never even thought I would be medaling whenever I first got into the activity. So I'll take a silver medal any day of the week, even if it is a tie.
Yeah.
And then there were other members who were immediately like, oh, that's so great. Me and us and the Bluecoats are besties, there was a lot of different emotions going on from a lot of different people, but it was definitely something new. And also the Akron show got rained out, and we put in a lot of design work. We took about, I think, 3 or 4 days off between the Allentown show and the Akron show, and we really just put a lot of production value into the closer mostly. And we really needed that Akron show to bump our score up a little bit, and that show ended up getting rained out. And I personally am convinced to this day that if that show would have happened, we probably would not have tied with the Bluecoats, but there's no way for us to really know that. So I'm happy with the silver medal.
And you mentioned that, sometimes the production's not done until finals week. Is that like nerve-wracking to be still trying to, attack or tweak stuff that close to the end?
It was nerve-wracking, but not because we were tweaking stuff. It was nerve-wracking because most of the comments we got from judges' tapes were general effects geared, and like, we just don't think you have enough on the field. There's not enough going on. There's not enough to tell us what the story is. And it seemed like there wasn't a whole lot going on in design staff's mind, but they don't ever really tell you the whole thing. And so I remember whenever we finally added in all of the production that we were going to do to the show going into finals, I watched the show from the rehearsal run through, and I was like, okay, yeah, there's a lot that's added. And as a performer, it was really hard during the rehearsal to see that we had added so much to it, because so much of it goes by me in the rehearsal, just because I'm focusing so much on making my personal show better and like the things that I need to do in the chunks that need to be good. But it was definitely nerve-wracking to know that we had more to do. But we didn't, like most chords, change their like closer or something. We didn't even do that. We didn't learn any new drill. All we did were add some color guard stuff, some flair to the closer. And it was effective.
So like, I know like when Bluecoats revealed their costume change, when they first did that, I think that was at Murfreesboro, but like, I saw on social media that some of the members, like, they knew that was in the stage from spring training. Like, they knew that was going to happen. That was going to be part of their show. Like, at Boston, did you all know all of the stuff that was going to go into it that early, or did you have to wait that late to see the full picture?
Way back in, like, I think it was the first week of spring training, we had Keith Potter, who's kind of the lead designer, I guess. We sat down at the end of the afternoon block, and he explained to us the thought process behind the show, the whole Paradise Lost from Milton or something like that. And he explained that like the entire theme of the show is kind of like the Garden of Eden and humanity getting kicked out of the garden, being told to fend for themselves. But they didn't tell us what we were actually going to do in the show. It was more of like a uniform reveal, like this is what the guard's going to be doing. We're kind of going for a Burning Man aesthetic. And there was nothing, like, they didn't tell us that at the very end, we would make like this pathway, and that was going to be the exodus of Adam and Eve out of the garden. And also the tarps that we added in at the very end, they weren't really told to us. There were also some very minute details, like during the snake baritone battery feature, there's an apple that's always present, but it's never really seen because it's literally just an apple. Mm-hmm. Like we had a guard member who actually took a bite out of the apple at the end of that snake feature, and that was the beginning of the end for the show. And so like those small details were the things that we were kind of told about. And even in that design meeting, I'm not sure design staff knew entirely what they wanted to do with the show. They had ideas, but they weren't sure what was going to make it to the end and what was going to get cut.
They did a show around, like, I think Adam and Eve a while back, or it may have been, but it was like Temptation or something. And they made a drill set. Core Temptation. And they made a drill set where they took a bite out of the apple. I maybe they didn't want to revisit that, but for me being visually impaired, like I would have never seen the apple. Like,
that many people did that I talked to.
But like, if they did a drill representation of that on the field, I would have been like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because the ending of that show always bothered me. I was just like, I don't. Okay.
Yeah. We talked about that in a few episodes, I think. And me personally, I think I wanted the ending to be less soft, like, so to speak. And I wanted it to get more back into the evil, the aggression side of things.
Yeah.
Like, I get the ending for the story and everything. But so, like, as far as a performer, like, do you feel the same way about how the show ended? Would you have changed anything?
It's not really my place to say what design staff should do, but I do have my opinions. And at the end of the competitive season, I knew like that company front we did with the Lacrimosa, and we did the coupe steps / jazz walks. I knew that was going to be a season thing, and it was going to make or break. And in the end of the season, it broke us. Like those coupe walks were never clean. Sometimes we didn't form the line very well. Like in Allentown, I remember specifically that company front did not form because of the hashes. And someone got, as we call when they follow the high school hashes rather than the college hashes, and that form was atrocious at Allentown. And so if I were to change anything, I would definitely change that Lacrimosa stuff. And in spring training, the way they phrased it to us is that it was going to be a high risk, high reward thing for us to do a company front at that slow tempo with that coupe step marking time. And I agree, it's very high risk, high reward, but there was no reward. We always got commented on, it always got ticked from us. And I see what Zach is saying about, like, you want the more evil and you want the aggression at the very end. And I kind of wanted that. But I remember when we did the full run, when we finally had all the drill set, it finally clicked that, like, oh, this is going to be an impactful show. And that was the only show I think I've ever performed where I was, like, super hype to actually have the full show, because it finally made sense holistically. Like, oh, Adam and Eve are leaving the garden. Humanity is like gone, for lack of better words. And I was like, this is going to be a good show. It was another one of those moments where I was like, this is going to be a special season for me personally.
Yeah. I don't think the soft ending was the problem for me. It was the harmonic choice to end it on a Pickering third. Like,
oh really?
I felt like it should have ended a little bit more ominous.
When I listened to the end of that show, every time I would listen to rehearsal run-throughs, the end, because we were facing the back corner towards where Adam and Eve were running towards, and in the run-through, I just never got the harmony. You know, that was one thing I was actually worried about, is how much credit are we actually going to be getting for what we're doing? Like, how much is actually going to be heard from the box and from the field? And that was one concern of mine, is how much of that was actually being read correctly.
Yeah. It's in, ifs and hands or candy, but, the world would be a wonderful place. Being a designer, that's hard, and you have to make those choices, and you have to live with those choices.
Yeah.
I mean, I do it, when I design marching band shows or even indoor shows, and, you hope that your vision comes through to the people that it matters to, but you just never know. You just never know. And then the vision can be great and the execution cannot be there. And then, or vice versa. The execution's there, but like the vision wasn't. So I'm sure, when you're that close, when you can almost smell a gold, it's almost like, let's risk it for the biscuit. Let's see what happens. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, we definitely did a lot of like balls to the wall kind of things. Like the battery book was very balls to the wall. It was some of the most dense writing I've seen. And the horn book was hard. The drill was difficult. And I've heard so many people talk about our guard, and I'm not a very guard inclined person, but even I can see that the stuff that they're doing is on another level. Like they deserve to win the Zingali in 22 because they were doing things that I don't think anybody had ever thought about doing. The amount of content that they had and the rate that they were achieving at definitely warranted best guard in DCI.
How old was that guard that year? How many age outs were there?
Oh gosh, that's a good question.
Like if you could just give a percentage, I would say.
I didn't talk to too much of the guard. There was not a whole lot of age outs actually. Gotcha. Like I still know a lot of people in the guard who went back for another season.
Okay.
So if I had to give a number, let's see, we take about 40 or 50. Out of those 40 or 50, we maybe had less than 20 age outs.
Oh, wow. I figured it would have been older just because of how ridiculous they were. But
there's one guy, he's a Dartmouth guy, and he's only in his senior year at Dartmouth. He is, he's we have some of the most impressive guard performers I've ever had the opportunity to meet. They're so talented. There's this one girl who I don't think I've ever seen her drop a rifle or a saber or a flag or anything. And it's the most impressive thing I've seen, just to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it a few times on the show, like guard is probably my third or fourth place I'm going to look or watch just because I have so many other, I'm a brass person, so I'm looking at brass and then visual and I was also in drumline. So like, that's my next on my list is where to look and listen for. And guard is on like last on my list, but I've said it a few times. If your guard catches my attention and makes me watch them ahead of all the other things that I have prioritized, they're doing something right. And there were many times, especially when I saw you all live at Murfreesboro, like from the very beginning, I was like, this guard is unreal. Like just some of the exchanges that were going on just from the very beginning was like, they're not playing. They're out to win. And they were legit.
Consistent all year long.
For sure. That was the game, was consistency.
It was from a core standpoint, I was like, this might be it. This might be the year. It's just, with Blue Devils being, you're talking about the kings and queens of consistency. There you go, right there. They do what they do well. Take it or leave it. You can't deny that they do what they do well. And and Blue Coats with their mentality of, all right, we're going to do whatever we want, and if you like it, great. If you don't, not. But you got to respect it at some point. And
I think the thing that the Blue Devils do really well is they have a really great member experience. Like when the Blue Devils end their season, even if they don't win, they're still ecstatic. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people missed in Boston was that week from Allentown to championships was one of the roughest weeks, I think. And that was the big deal, is that the core collectively kind of just didn't have the drive. Like, there were people in the core that had the drive to push that little extra mile, but a lot of the core just kind of were like, we're as good as we're going to get. We really did hit a plateau where we just didn't get much better, it feels like. And I mean, who you talk to from that core will tell you something different, but there's people that will say, like, no, I felt great going into finals. And there are people that be like, yeah, I really feel stagnant. And that's the one thing that the Blue Devils don't do, is they go all the way to the end, all the way till finals night. And in 22, that was definitely one of the things that got us at that tie with the Blue Coats, is our lack of ability that season to push all the way to the end.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you think that finals run was your best run? Like, not you personally, but the core.
That's a good question. I think it was really close. Like, nitpicking small minor details. Me personally, I think my best run probably was prelims. It's really hard to think now that was, a year ago now. Yeah. And I actually, like, there was so much content put out of the Boston Crusaders during finals week. Like, I had a headcam video that I did. I couldn't watch that headcam till the new year, like till January of this year, because every single mistake I made in that headcam lives in my mind. And it was so hard for me to even watch the first 30 seconds of that video. And it took me a lot of time to be like, it was the end of a 4-hour rehearsal. I had been doing that for 3 months. You got to learn how to take some grace with yourself. You're not going to be perfect all the time. Yeah. And that was the hardest lesson to learn. And I didn't watch any content from drum corps for 6 months just because it was so hard for me.
Yeah. I remember watching that finals run in Indy, and I just felt like, it's like, they're pressing. I felt like they were trying really, really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And some things happened that typically didn't happen, and I was just like, oh no. And it just happened. Blue Coats probably gave their best performance of the year that night, and Blue Devils did the same.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I mean, as I'm also a battery person, I do a lot of drumming on the side as well as brass, and so I listened very intently to the drum line almost all season. And even though my ears aren't the best, they're good enough to hear that our drum line kind of peaked around Atlanta, or even Allentown, some might say. And then from there, they kind of reached the peak of the mountain too early. And there's this YouTube channel that I follow, and they occasionally post judges' tapes. And they did actually post Boston's percussion tape from finals. And if you listen to that tape, the judges tell you everything. Mm-hmm. There's some things that should have been in there that weren't. There's some things, like really hard stuff, that just wasn't being achieved that should have been at that point in the season. And that was the case not only in the battery, but in the brass line as well. Mm-hmm. Personally, like, I had a lot of issues finishing the show. Not because I was too tired, but because my face was just so worn, and it had so much going on in it. There was so much fatigue going on from the season that I had trouble finishing. And it's just like you said, I was forcing it to come out. And I feel like a lot of my friends were in some of the same situations where they were just having to force the notes out because their face was too tired.
And it's crazy because if you talk about what you said, like with BD, how they go through the whole season, and it's just constant grind, it's just constant whatever all the way, because that's a true statement with them. And you got everybody else in their eyes. It's like, if we don't bring it 110% today, there is no tomorrow. And then you do that 2 days or 2 times, 2 days in a row. By that third day, after doing 2.5 months to really 3 months, So I fully understand that comment. And
and again, that's another thing the Blue Devils do really well, is they know how to rest their members, and they do it really well. Like at Boston, we had our free days, but once we hit tour, we had our Boston free day right after concert in the park. I think we had a beach free day at some point that year. there was not a whole lot of free time, which isn't. I don't want to say it's a bad thing, but it's also not a good thing to not have any time off. We had rehearsal all the time. As much as we could fit in, we did. Granted, we still got our sleep, but just not enough relax, not enough time to rest.
And I say that to a lot of people. I was like, because man, we got housed with BD one year or one show, and I tell people the same. I was like, dude, that stuff it's real talk. They are really like that. It is the most successful, laid back core I've ever seen in my life. And then you got all these other groups because everybody else is like, I don't know if it's true or not, but it makes it seem like everybody thinks if they don't grind, they can't beat BD, or they can't get to that goal, or they can't get to those top threes if they don't grind. Then you turn around and you look at BD and they're sitting on lounge chairs, winning.
Yeah.
Exactly. And because I always tell people, because people like to judge BD, especially in the beginning on this, like with their battery or something. It's like, oh, BD's dirty and this. I said, y'all can talk about BD all you want. Come finals, your tone is going to change because that's how BD has operated year after year after year. Like that's their MO. They don't care nothing about being dirty in the beginning of the season or middle of the season. By that end of the, absolutely not. It's just ridiculous how they do it. But it's true because we stood beside them and during the retreat one time as well. Man, they just cracking jokes and stuff because, scouts is like SEV. We got to be soldiers in the line and we just stand there and can't blink and everything. And they're over here playing like slap games and all kinds. I'm like, this is some bull, right? I'm in here cussing in my head. I was like, I just want to take a picture real quick. Can I? But
I remember I think it was the 2017 season, but David Behan was the brass caption head that year, and it was a lot video that I was watching. And there's a quote that he says right before they start doing one of their show chunks, and it's like, he asks them a question, and then I think it was like, what's our goal? And everybody says it's to have fun. He's like, exactly. If you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong. And I agree wholeheartedly with that statement. I mean, we spend too much money to do this activity, especially now. If you're not having fun, why are you doing it? And there's no point. You're not having fun.
There's a bunch of ways to skin a cat, man. And, Blue Devils has their approach. I think, Blue Coats is another group that I think I saw somewhere online, like somebody was upset that they weren't going out to as many shows as everybody else. And I'm just like, they're choosing to do it that way. They know their kids, they know their program, they have to pace it the way that works for them. And it should be, yes, it's an experience of work and, dedication, but, these kids got to have fun too. It's got to be a nice little balance of both. Winning is fun, yes, but not everybody can win. So how do you keep those other kids engaged? How do you keep, that 17th place core, engaged for 3 or 4 months, getting their butts kicked every week?
Exactly. Yeah. And when I was at Music City, I had the time of my life. We weren't exactly competitive. I think we got like 20th, maybe 19th place that season, if I'm remembering correctly. But I didn't care how we placed. I had so much fun that season, and I knew I had made like lifelong friends that I still talk to some of those people these days. And you got to know how to do it. Sometimes those opportunities aren't going to be provided to you by the core, but you can make your own fun. You can talk to people. You can bond over the shared hatred of this one thing that you do in the show. And you got to know how to do that. And when you're not competitively successful, you got to know how to find the fun. Yeah. And sometimes the fun is with the people you're with 24/7.
Yeah, that's one thing I love about my percussion section is we have a blast. We don't take ourselves too seriously. People call us construction workers because every time they look at us, we're never doing anything. But next thing you know, we have a whole show learned, and it's like how do you get anything done? Like, I don't know. They come, they get on my nerves, and then they leave, and we have a minute worth of music learning, and but they love what they do. So it doesn't seem like work to them. It doesn't seem like practice. And then they want to come and they want to be there. Everybody's like, how can a drum corps person subject themselves to that much, It's like because they love what they do, and there are organizations to allow them to do it.
It takes a special kind of person to want to do drum
You
corps.
do.
Some of the friends that I talk about that don't enjoy marching band or didn't have the best time, or some of them don't even know what drum corps is. Talk to them about how it's like, yeah, it's super routine. Everything they tell you what to do and you do it. You wake up at this time, you go to rehearsal, you have lunch at this time. The entire day is structured for 3 months. Mm-hmm. And they think, wow, that's crazy. I don't know if I could do that. And that's the thing is no one ever knows whether they can really do it until they do it. And some people wake up and smell the roses and they're just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to come back for another season. And more power to them. And then others really thrive off of that. And they love the structure. They love the people that do the activity and they come back year after year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what are your plans post drum corps?
I sent some emails out to some drum corps. I'm going to try and get into the teaching game a little bit. I took last year off because after doing it for 5 years, I said I need a break. And on the other hand, I didn't feel like I was quite ready yet to teach in drum corps. I needed to get my feet a little bit more wet, put myself in the high school game a little bit more here in Kentucky, and just do the teaching. And then after finals, I sent some emails. Haven't heard back yet. It's still really early. And hopefully in the summer, I'm teaching somewhere. As far as school goes, it's just practice, make sure I'm good at trumpet. And with a little bit of teaching that I'm doing on the side, I just want to make sure that the students I teach are having fun, but they're also getting better. I love seeing results. I mean, you got to want to see results and be able to get that out of your students.
Cool. And you're going to UK for performance. So are we trying to get an orchestra gig or military or college or what?
I've wanted to be a band director since I was a freshman year in high school. So that's my end goal. Okay. Once I graduate with this master's degree, I'm going to find a band director job and I'm going to teach for the better part of a decade, maybe more, see what happens. The master's in performance is just to get a little bit of extra pay for teaching. As teachers, we all need that.
Oh, we know.
And then once if I ever get to the point where I'm not enjoying teaching, which I don't think is going to happen, eventually I would like to go and get my doctorate and teach trumpet at the college level. And we'll see. That'll be years and years down the line after I have done my time in marching band in high school and all that.
If by some chance you ever want to move to the PNW and you need a percussion instructor, I'm in the same boat, man. Sending out a lot of emails.
Yeah, that's the thing in drum corps. You got to know people. I had an opportunity to teach at Boston after my age out, and I was talking with the corps director about maybe teaching there, and he said, we'd love to have you send us an email and we'll see what we could do. And I had a long talk with myself internally about whether or not I was really ready to do that. And ultimately I just decided it wasn't for me. I didn't want to put that much pressure on myself going into grad school.
Well, good luck.
For sure.
I just talking to you the past hour, you have it.
Yeah.
You definitely have it. And I think whatever you decide you're going to do, I think you're going to be awesome at it.
That's the goal.
Stevie, question. What was the best meal you had at Corps?
The best meal?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great question. I'm not going to count any of the meals I had at Boston because we actually got housed at a dorm and they had a student dining center. So everything they put out was pretty good.
Okay.
But when I was at Spirit, we actually had like a 5-star chef, I think, who cooked all of our meals day to day. So there would be days where we would have baby back ribs for like lunch and dinner.
Oh, dang.
And then, of course, the alumni were great. we had a steak a lot of times.
That does not sound like
we had some really good meals in
PB&J.
Spirit when I was there.
Your favorite free day activity or the favorite free day you ever did?
Ooh. I'm there with my friends for the hand. We all just decide what we're going to do together. My favorite free day that I did have was at Music City. We had a free day at Daytona Beach after like a couple hours of rehearsal, and it was great. Me and some friends went to the beach. We went and got some food, had some seafood right by the ocean, went to play some mini golf. It was a great day overall. So
that's what's up.
Anything that has my friends around, I'm there for, and I'm going to enjoy it.
Besides the regional stadium, your favorite stadium to play in?
Oh, goodness. My favorite stadium to play in.
It's got to be the house at WKU. It's the best one.
Gosh, wow. The Denton show, I think, was really. Oh no, it's got to be Murfreesboro. It's got to be Murfreesboro. The 22 season, and because I went to Western Kentucky University, I had so many friends that went to that show. So many of my students that I taught at various high schools were there. A lot of band directors that I helped to teach with were there. All of my friends from college were there. And so I just remember finishing the performance. I was responsible for a couple of pit things. So I would walk up to the front, and all of my friends, they knew that I was there, and they were like, "Oh, hi." And my family was there. And so it was just so nice to have the home community come out and show the support for me and be there, show me some appreciation. It felt nice. Felt like a home show.
That show probably comes at a good time in the season too, because it's after you've been away for a while, then you're on that last push because it's right before Atlanta, and it probably comes at a good time for someone who's around this area to have a touch of home.
I'm pretty sure that was my home show. It had to be.
Yeah, probably.
Murfreesboro was a great
it's
show.
The best show.
I've enjoyed it every time I've been there.
Oh, they was mad at us too because they didn't know how to act. Because me being in Madison, a lot of them from the north, they don't understand what do is in the mornings. I said, "Welcome back to the South." I said, "This is what I grew up with all my life." I said, "I'm used to this." Yeah, it could snow in about 8 hours. I don't know what to tell y'all.
Right.
All right. My last question, and if anybody else got something you want to ask them, you can ask them. If you could march either one corps or one show from all time, what would it be?
I would march one show, and it would be Kinetic Noise from the Blue Coats.
Nice.
I like that.
Yeah, it's my home show.
Yes.
Show. I love the music. I love the show.
Oh.
Yeah. Great show all around.
Some of the best uniforms ever.
And for real. They were great.
Exactly. They were perfect.
Yeah, man. That show is I watched, when I got into drum corps, I had heard a lot about Tilt, so I watched Tilt. I was like, okay, yeah, this is pretty cool. And so, of course, the next thing I did was like, all right, Blue Coats 2015 into the YouTube search bar, and it was Kinetic Noise. And immediately I was like, oh, this is a great show. Mm-hmm. The music was so pleasing to the ear, and I still think it's some of the most well-composed music I've ever heard on the marching band field. It was just so masterful. It was great.
A lot of people really, really like Tilt. And I'm like Tilt, but for me, the only part that was really memorable for Tilt was the end. Like, I appreciate the whole show for what it was. But the end, but like Kinetic Noise, like, I can almost sing that whole show from beginning to end. Like,
me too.
It was just so well done.
It may or may not be in my car right now on a CD.
So, yeah. You guys, fellas, you got any questions for him? I felt like I asked all the things.
Basically, everything was ran.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Noah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. I got to give the whole spiel.
No problem.
If you guys have any thoughts about Boston from that year and or just the interview in general, please put them down in the comments below. You always like, comment, share, subscribe. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also listen to us on Spotify.fm and things of that nature. And like I said, Noah, it's been a blast. Brother, if you need anything,
For sure.
I can help you in any way, holler at me, for real.
I got you. Yeah. Same goes for you. Yeah. I'm still in state. Warren County is not that far away from me. I can always come down and help sometime.
Listen, don't. Listen.
That's a do it statement right there. For real.
Because we don't need all the. Lord, we need some.
Who doesn't need all the help they can get?
But yeah, man, it has been an absolute blast, and we will try. Maybe we'll do like a react of the 22 season and let you talk about some things that maybe we didn't see.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be fun.
That'd be cool.
That'd be cool
to talk to you about some stuff on that too. So
sure, yeah, I'd love to do that.
Cool beans. Well. If Christopher Will, you don't got on anything else, this has been, I think, episode 52. This has been weird. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to see and hear a lot of weird stuff. It's okay.
Yay, technology.
Right.
Yay, technology. Yeah.
We made it work. We figured it out. So I think this is episode 52 or 51.
Somewhere around there.
Who's counting? Anyway, this is the 50s.
Yeah.
My name is Cedric, for Zach, Will, and Noah and Chris, who cannot be with us. Take care of each other. Love one another. Go out and watch a Marching Man show. Marching Man season starts this week.
Woo!
Okay.
For y'all.
Yeah, for us. In Washington, they just now starting band camp. Y'all just started school.
No, we just started school. Band camp. Yeah, band camp was last month, and was it today? The first day? No.
Tomorrow will probably be the first day.
If it wasn't tomorrow, it might have been Friday. Like they did that one of those. You just go to school for a day and then you get like 3 days off. I don't know. It's weird out here, bro. I swear, they only go to school for like 4 hours because there's too many kids walking around. I'm like, why? What is happening? Where's your mama? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So from all of us to all of you. Thanks for watching and listening. We are Dut
out.
Just kidding.